say quiet dynamite, because obviously we kind of trained as geoscientists, we don't really train to communicate whatsoever. And so we have our hard skills, and communication is considered a soft skill. I always say that I think it should be considered a hard skill because of its central importance in everything that we do in science, but especially the mining industry. So when I say quiet dynamite, it's something that we consider to be soft, but in fact, it's absolutely fundamental to what we do. And so I want to give you a hint of why just a few reasons. I haven't got time to explore all the facets of this. Few reasons why I think, communication could be dynamite for the mining industry, or is dynamite, and how it could shake things up a bit and actually help us with the energy transition. And so it takes on an ethical element to this. It's not only important to get permission to operate, social license, etc., attract investment, but if we are concerned about the energy transition and reaching net zero, then it obviously feeds into that. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to do it. And so communication we need to invest in communication, understanding how to communicate effectively in order to reach net zero indirectly. So let's just move on. It does concern all of us, doesn't matter where you are. I think most people are upstream here, but if you're a producer, a manufacturer, distributor, or a member of the public, this particular subject, how we communicate and how we portray the mining industry, it does concern literally everybody. And we're going to see why in a moment. And why it particularly matters to you, well, you can identify yourself here within your company, with the stakeholders or shareholders that you have, and with the general public. I want to just break that down so you actually see step by step. I'm going to focus on the public because that's my kind of area of expertise, but I want to just spell it out very clearly for each of them why it matters and why this is an important subject. So if you're talking about, whether you're talking about wastage, which is a big issue in mining, poor engagement with stakeholders, investor diversity is a huge drive to attract ESG investors now, and public perception. If you don't do it right, then it literally does cost hundreds of billions of dollars, if not just for your company, but more broadly throughout the whole mining sector every year. It's difficult to do back of the envelope calculations on this, but it has been tried. And this is the kind of order of magnitude that we're talking about. And I believe that the mining industry is squandering this much money every year because of the way that they communicate. How? Well, let's say you're a junior geologist who reports that maybe $300 million of ore is being wasted monthly, and then you communicate to a site manager. And this has happened before. I'm using these as case studies because I'm aware of real case studies in Australia and in Europe where this has happened. And then the site manager says, just focus on your job, right? So this is a problem with communication. How is that junior geologist supposed to communicate? What is the problem within that mining company that doesn't allow a junior geologist to actually speak their mind and actually help, increase the profitability of that company? All about communication. Poor public perception means a constant struggle to recruit the next generation. We're all very aware of the talent crisis within the mining sector. And so that stems from a poor public perception and not our people going to university to study relevant subjects that we can pool those talents. So if we're not talking to the public and convincing the public, then we're just going to be constantly living with this talent pipeline crisis that we're always in. We have been in very significantly recently, and the ability to engage effectively with local opposition. We do band around this word a lot, noting NIMBYs, as if it's a kind of a derogatory term, but really they're just concerned people who may not be aware of the subtleties, and so they reflect the general consensus or the general feeling of ambivalence or hostility that the general public have. So how do we engage with those people constructively rather than just shut them down and say you don't know what you're talking about? How should we do that properly? It's very, very important we do that. Otherwise, again, years of litigation, licenses being denied, and therefore, squandered exploration costs. Again, billions. And, I think you've probably seen diagrams like this before. Mining is unattractive. These are millennials, students 15 to 30 who would consider working in the sectors. So the mining industry, you put them together, you can look at these yourself. very, very unattractive. The most unattractive of all of them, even more than oil and gas. How is that even possible? I don't understand. So if we just have to understand this is where we are now. Okay, just to state the obvious, this is where we are now. And so therefore, to formulate an effective communication strategy, we have to acknowledge that. We have to say whatever comes out of our mouths, it is seen through this lens, the public's lens of hostile or ambivalent, mostly hostile, it seems. So we have to work from there. And it, of course, impacts growth. Look at this. This is global mining, and they have companies globally are underinvesting in growth. So this is the capital expansion capital as a percentage of the global mining sector. And you can see recently there has been an inability to grow. And that actually causes a series of capex freezes. You're not investing in growth anymore, but who benefits from those capex freezes? Okay, normally the money is returned to shareholders, so they're happy, so the share price goes up, more people want it. So it boosts the market cap of these companies as a result. So that looks pretty good on paper. It looks like the company's growing and people are more excited about it, but it's also hiding something critical, is that, you know, the inability to grow is probably a reflection of an inadequate social license to operate. So on paper, in the short term, it actually looks quite rosy. We're actually making money and share prices going up. But at the end of the day, it's masking something which is pretty terrible for the energy transition. And that is the fact that mining companies aren't able to invest as much as they should be able to invest because of a poor social license to operate. To resolve that, we need to adapt our communication strategies. Okay. So this is a famous quote from Warren Buffett. Okay. Being a better communicator can instantly make you at least 50% more effective than you are today. Now, that goes for companies, to any companies, but especially mining companies, given where they are right now. More effective, but more valuable. If you learn to communicate, you become a more valuable person, a more valuable judicial person, like a company. And 76%, according to Webb Shundrick, 76% of a company's market capital is down to reputation. Wow, not necessarily their proven resources, but how the public and how investors see that company. So to sum things up, you could just leave it right there. I could stop the presentation. It's all psychology. It's all about communication. Well, at least the vast majority of it. I mean, can take it seriously. Why aren't we taking it seriously yet? I mean, this is, they say they're taking it seriously on paper, but I'm going to show you examples of the way they take it seriously and why it actually doesn't work. So how are we communicating right now, and how can we improve? I'm more of a solutions person, so I won't spend too long on, you know, how we're doing it right now. So internally, we need systems that proactively solicit employee feedback on safety, wastage, and innovation. So I already mentioned that case study where a junior mine geologist couldn't actually convey things properly to a site manager or mid-management, and that was costing the company millions of dollars a week. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example here. This is, I don't know if you might know this lady, Priscilla Nelson from Colorado School of Mines. Great innovator, incredible. So she actually sees mining tasers as an opportunity, as I think many mining companies are increasingly aware that they are. And of course, if you are removing material and recycling it and upcycling it, then obviously that reduces the mass going into those tailings, reduces failures, increases profits by offering alternative revenue sources, improving closure outcomes, improving community relationships. It does everything. Why wouldn't you possibly go back to the tailings and do this? So geologists actually are uniquely equipped to help in this regard with all of their array of tools that they can use, as XRF, ICP-MS, etc. They can actually say this is something that can be done. So we need and proactive mechanism to solicit that kind of feedback in order to communicate effectively internally. It's just one example. There are very many. For investors, at the moment, we have a relatively homogenous, pretty not very diverse investor profile. Still quite modest ESG investment. ESG community is still a little bit hesitant about the mining industry because it has a poor public image. And we have pretty standard reporting cards, which are, well, uninspiring. This is why I am working with Verify at the moment, because they are championing a different kind of reporting card. You probably know about Verify. They've got this very snazzy 3D animation goes through and pretty much more catchy, much more interesting and engaging for an investor point of view. But this is actually a really big market, because the ESG market is projected to reach 53 trillion in the next 2 years. And so if we want to tap into that market, we need to radically change the way we communicate, and not just with investors, with the public, because just like politicians almost, an ESG investor is concerned about the reputation and public image of that company, right? So we shouldn't only be catering for investors. We should be talking directly to the public. Okay? And then just imagine, just for a second, that you have some mining site which has been approved or endorsed by Greenpeace or Extinction Rebellion. It has their seal of approval on it. I don't know what's going through your minds right now. You might be thinking, pie in the sky. That is absolutely never going to happen. But actually, yeah, you're probably thinking, really? Actually, I would say yes. The reason I say yes is because I know personally the founder of Extinction Rebellion, and I've had significant conversations with her. Her name's Claire. And she, even though it's not stated publicly by Extinction Rebellion, is aware of mining's central role in the energy transition. Okay, it's just that because mining has got such a toxic image, and the people, their members, have such a poor image of mining, it's very difficult for the senior leadership of Extinction Rebellion to actually support any kind of mining. Okay, so you can imagine that there would be a world in the future that we have reached a point where our level of communication is such that, no level of humility, modesty in what we do, has reached to a point where, and sincerity and genuine nature, has reached a point where Extinction Rebellion can actually say, you know what, that particular company there, not mine, that particular company is doing something really valuable for the local community, and is actually not trying to greenwash or whitewash, and is not trying to put the wool over our eyes, and is meeting all of our criteria for what we would say to put our stamp of approval. And then what do you think the ESG investors would do? My goodness, there would be no more excuses anymore. They would certainly invest heavily in such a company, as long as we can get our communication right. And that not only means communicating, that particular company communicating effectively, but it requires the whole industry to invest in shifting public perception and genuinely changing themselves. About the public, I believe that the public are absolutely fundamental to this, no question about it. But I think that we also, the way we communicate at the moment, it might be typified by something like this. And we imagine this man is the mining industry and this lady is the public. You know, who cares? Well, imagine if the public would say, who cares about mining? Okay, it's just boring rocks and it hurts the planet. Now, this is, I'm condensing these arguments down, these points of view down significantly. But sadly, that's where we are right now. That's probably the general impression, certainly if you see the surveys that I presented earlier, the general perception is that mining is irrelevant, it's boring, and we've been shouting about this for ages, so what's going on here? And, it hurts the planet. Say it's the rape and pillage of the planet. People say these kinds of things. And so I've actually asked mining geologists what they would say in response to this person, okay? And this is what they've come up with. These are the kinds of answers I've got. These are real answers from real mining geologists. Society needs mining. Are you a NIMBY? It's key to a sustainable future. the biggest one. If it's not grown, it's mine. Okay. Do you know where all the elements in your smartphone come from? Okay, so these are the kind of retorts that we use when talking to somebody who is hostile, okay, and that's most people, remember, or ambivalent at least. Now, if a mining sector representative says these kinds of things, which are on the screen right now, to somebody who is hostile or ambivalent, what do you think they hear? Okay, they don't feel like, oh my God, I was wrong. No, of course not. They get defensive. They hear this. We're important. You need us. You should be grateful. That's what they hear. In other words, we sound arrogant. Okay, we really do sound arrogant if it wants you understand that people come from a position of hostility. Okay, we can't change public perception by saying if it's not grown, it's mine. It just won't work. Okay, so we will talk about how we do this. Okay, now social media, which is essentially just word of mouth on steroids. Okay, social media has a key role to play since we can reach so many people so quickly. But again, we're not. I'm not part of the mining industry personally, but the mining industry is not using it correctly. Okay, I'm going to give you some examples. First of all, we do use 3 echo chambers. This one in the middle now should be a big X apparently, but 3 echo chambers with the lowest possible engagement rates of anyone. So first of all, we're talking to ourselves in LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. They're communities, they're groups. And the next generation, those who we want to attract into industry, aren't on Facebook anymore. Okay, that's for my mum. Maybe I use it a little bit, but that's it. And LinkedIn is for professionals. So by definition, we are talking to each other. Boring. That's not going to do anything. And Twitter also, again, a big echo chamber, terrible engagement rate. And for those of you who don't know what engagement rate means, it's ER percentage. That's a percentage. That's the percentage of people who interact with a post, right, compared to the number of people who've seen it, right? So if you post something and it reaches 100 people, 100 people see it in their feed, and only 2 people actually like it, then congratulations, you've got an engagement rate of 2%. Terrible. Okay. Now, what about these? What about Instagram and TikTok? Okay, 7% viral content, and the vast majority of the mining sector are just not there. They're not there, except the big players, of course, the Rio Tintos, the BHPs, some short techs there. But, you know, let's see what they tend to do. I must admit, I haven't seen tech yet, so don't shoot me down, but I'm going to show you another major and what they do. Oh, by the way, these are the kind of people who are on Instagram and TikTok, and even I was there until I opened my company. So you've got here, I don't know if I put their names here, but you've got Marcus. Sorry, I haven't actually put them there. Marcus, Kate Larson, Groovy Geologist, Andrea Katwa, Vinicius. These are people who have got hundreds of thousands, even millions of followers, with engagement rates of 15 to 20%, and who are doing it because they love their subject. Yeah, they're getting paid peanuts to do it, right? They might get paid to go to a conference or to shout out a conference or something like that, but they get paid very, very little money. And in fact, some people, and I know somebody who's got even more followers than Kate, who is the poster child, and he is about to give up because he can't do it anymore. He can't make enough money to live, right? Something's going wrong here. And the mining industry needs these people. Yeah, they are, in the absence of any particular effort from the mining industry, these people here are our greatest ambassadors for the geosciences, right? Because as soon as you get people into the geosciences, start understanding who they are, what it is, go to university, that's going to help the mining industry. And they've received no support from the mining industry, nothing at all. How it's currently done, you can probably tell by the colors which company this is. This is how it's currently done. It's very color coordinated. There is a healthy gender race balance. You see definitely ubiquitously happy employees everywhere. There are statements about why they're important, about copper and lithium and how it's really important, the energy transition, and it's all positive news. And you also have here in the corner here something about an interim dividend share payment here. So it's for investors. Now, remember, that if a member of the public who, as we said, don't really like the mining industry comes here and sees a profile like this, it does look whitewashed. Okay, it looks very artificial. Obviously, you've got a talented bunch of MBAs and artists in their publicity department who put something nicely color coordinated together, and it's all about saying how important they are, and everyone's really happy, and you've got men and women and equal numbers, etc., etc. It doesn't have the visceral organic nature that a real Instagram profile has. Okay, and it's obviously just putting a face. It's probably just a little tick box for investors. We've got an Instagram profile, we're active there, we're posting there, tick. But if you actually dig into the numbers, the engagement rates for these profiles are extremely low, about the same as LinkedIn. The comments are very often negative on the posts. And the worst thing is that BHP doesn't respond to anybody anyway. You can comment all you want, but no representative is going to respond to those comments, much less in a direct message on Instagram. It's just blank. Okay, so it's a one-way conversation. They're not using Instagram for the way it was actually made for, the way the algorithm actually wants you to use it, which is for genuine communication, which is a two-way thing, just as much listening as it is speaking. So these things don't make any difference. And in fact, it can make things worse, because these kinds of profiles prove to the public their preconceived feelings about what the mining industry is, which is just rich and whitewashed. And this is not something that we really believe in. Okay. So this is a great example. This is a carousel post that they posted on Instagram. The first thing was, we do this, and then you swipe right or swipe left and you see you do that. In other words, you need us. Okay, we're important. It's exactly what I was saying. Okay, so we need a comms strategy that, as I said, starts from this negative perception. And that the first thing we need to do to address that is to see what our particular company is doing at the moment. Okay, so one thing that you could do is invest in an audit. And so what you should do is you should maybe go to an outsider and ask them to look at your company. And so I did this with quite a few companies, actually. But one of them I'm going to use Perpetua Resources, which is a company, I believe, in Idaho. But I'm using them because they're actually did quite a good job, actually. And so they're not going to be embarrassed for me to use them. And in fact, I got their permission, so it's okay. And so they do have a significant number of followers for a mining company. That's good. Pretty poor engagement, but this number down here is really important. The community investor content ratio. What does that mean? I think it's like numbers. That means that the stuff that they're putting out there is equally distributed, equally as interesting to investors, which is important. They're a listed company, but also the local community. Okay? So the local community can go to there and actually organically interact with them and see stuff which is relevant to them. Investors can also do the same. So that's really important. Yeah, not many companies have that. Perpetua's done a great job with that. And then there's ideas for action. There's lots of benefits that's going to bring. I think I've blown this up here. And so these are all really important. So if you proactively demonstrate strong community engagement, this company can build investor confidence. This is a different company, by the way. It's not Perpetua. And a solid social license to operate. This is golden. So this is a junior player, and they are struggling with social license to operate, which is going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. Strong socials will enhance your company investor base in the medium term, as ethical investors are attracted to more visible ESG and community credentials. So it has to be genuine. And 3, by cultivating a strong online and in-person community presence, your company has a better chance of obtaining regulatory approval for extraction with lower legal overheads. This is all very important for a mining company. You can, especially a junior one. And in fact, you probably are aware that the majority of junior players who are exploring never come to extraction. 17 years, 20 years, and the majority of them will go bust. They just won't be able to do it. If they were to just invest a small, tiny fraction of what they do in social media and effective engagement, they could turn things around 100%. You could go from the majority of them not coming to extraction to the majority coming to extraction. And so why wouldn't you do that? It bewilders me, to be honest with you. I don't know why. There's also another thing that I'm kind of a fan of, and that's evidence against interest. Now, we are expected, aren't we, to say that the mining industry is important, that it's essential for the energy transition, and obviously we're the mining industry. But what if we said something that wasn't necessarily in our favor? If the Pope says, a pretty obvious example, if the Pope says to you, I believe in God, well, what a surprise. I mean, he's just doing his job, obviously. But then if the Pope said to you that he doesn't believe in God, well, then suddenly he's grabbed your attention, right? I mean, that you want to listen to that. Similarly, if the mining companies weren't so self-righteous and actually lower themselves just a little bit, the public and environmental groups might actually pay more attention. Okay, so let's say we do say this a lot, don't we? I mean, this is the product environmental report for the iPhone 13, and you can see that in fact Apple know this very, very well. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they're a successful company, one of the most reliable companies, is that they are heavily investing in the circular economy. Yeah. So when we say it's not growing its mind, if all these elements in your smartphone, well, Apple's actually working against that. You can see 99% of the tungsten is recycled, 98% rare earth elements are recycled. That's something we all should get behind. We should all applaud that. But the mining industry never talks about that. No. I mean, because they think, well, it should be just about us, right? So instead of saying if it's not growing its mind, well, we could say there are many companies doing amazing work to reduce their dependency on mined resources. And you know what? We want to help them do that. Yeah. And in fact, I'm happy to say that there are some mining companies who have struck up, projects with companies who are invested in the circular economy. That gives a lot more credence to their ESG credentials. They should definitely be doing that. What about this? Instead of saying society needs us, well, mining isn't the only answer. Obviously, it's not the only answer. To get to net zero, we need to all make major changes. And that includes our industry. Yeah, so you can see how suddenly, not being confrontational, not being defensive, suddenly gives you a little bit more credence with the public. So my son is popping his head in the door here. I don't know what he wants. Okay, there are many other ideas that you could come up with. I don't really have time, and I prefer to open this up for questions. But I think that, I think you get an idea of where I'm coming from with this and how big this subject is. One program that I am particularly passionate about, obviously, is practical geocommunication. And one thing that companies can do is to actually support a university to access practical geocommunication. So just last week, I got a message from somebody from North Dakota State University, and they'd done my course. And they said to me, hey, I really wish I'd had this course 6 months ago, just before they closed my department, right? My geology department, because it would have given me so many tools to use with the decision makers, with the vice chancellor, with the program coordinator, to actually communicate effectively as to why this is really important. Yeah. And so there are many struggling universities across North America and across the world, actually, as you know, And so one thing a mining company can do if they are worried about the talent pipeline crisis, if they are worried about the public image, is to actually train geoscientists en masse, because we're not going to do it if it's just individuals here and there. That's the whole point of practical geocommunication. So the mining companies, if they can, sponsor a university. Not only does that give them national visibility, but it gives them something to put in their ESG fence. You know, they can say, well, this is what we're doing. We're actually making a big difference. And this is actually in line with net zero because we're actually trying to change public perception to improve the perception of the mining industry. So that's just one thing we can do. I have a shopping list of things that can be done, but that's just one idea. Okay, in summary, yes, we are all invested in mining's public image. And when I say society depends on it, yes, society depends on mining, but I think society also depends on the way we communicate mining. You know, people have to come on board. They have to. That's what society depends on. And so we need different communication to what we have hitherto been conducting. Okay. That's all I got. I hope you've got any questions.